Hey guys, this is Matt. Welcome back to my garage. You'll have to excuse me if I sound funny. I'm fighting a little bit of a sinus infection this week. Today I just want to go over a couple things specific to the RX7. I do read every single comment that gets posted on one of my videos, and I do see the comments are, where's the FD? What'd you do with the FD? What's going on? And I know a lot of people are subscribed to my channel because of the RX7. After doing a lot of the maintenance types things with the brakes and the clutch, slave and master, and getting the rear diff sealed up, that made the car drivable. And so really, after I did all that work last year and then I installed the lift in my garage, I really sat down and tried to figure out what the next step was going to be. We got to worry about the engine, we got to worry about the the body, suspension, the interior. There's a lot of things we got to focus on this car. The most important thing is probably the motor, because it will be one of the biggest expenses for this car. If I invest a lot of money in doing body work or suspension or whatever, only to find out I've got a wrecked engine, then it really hurts the situation even more. So this winter I had planned on taking the motor out of the car and doing a rebuild, but I decided that I want to do this the right way the first time and not have to worry about it in the future. So anybody that's built a rotary engine knows there's a very big expense with rebuilding the engine. Regardless of any kind of modifications that you're going to make, or switch over to a single turbo, any of that kind of stuff. Seal kits for this engine are very expensive. If you have to get any of the housings cleaned up or lapped or polished or any of that kind of stuff, that just really adds up very quickly. So I actually sat down one day with a piece of paper and searched online and talked to friends and said, this is what I want to do. These are my, my goals with this car are like 400 to 500 horsepower. I do want to do a single turbo swap. I do want to have probably a bridge port. Street port probably makes more sense for what I want to do with the car. I want a BRAP. So anyway, bridge port is probably what I want to do. Obviously all that comes with a new ECU, V-mount setup, fuel upgrade. So by the time you start throwing all that together, which all this is for any kind of project car, and you really put the numbers on paper, it gets staggering after a while. So I kind of took a break from stressing about doing things with the engine. There have been things for the car that I have been looking for online that I know are going to be harder parts to get. So I do have a lot of the interior pieces and trim pieces and all sorts of things. So I have been trying to get those while I see them, or if I get a good deal on them. But anyway, the engine is probably the primary focus for this car. That being said, a lot of the work I will do myself, bolt-ons, that type of stuff I can certainly do here. While it's not overly complicated to do the port work, it's probably best left to professionals and people that do it on a daily basis. I've never done it before, and so I have to realize that, and basically I want to get with a good shop that will do great work, and I can rely on them for the whole process of the build. For the most part, there's no one locally that I can get to help me do the port work and things. So that's step one, is finding out who's going to help me do that and where I want to send my parts. And then obviously all the other things that come with that are just things I'm gonna have to do over time. So knowing that it's gonna cost somewhere around 10 to 12, maybe even $15,000 to do what I wanna do with this engine, I'm gonna have to phase it. I'm gonna have to do baby steps. Obviously, getting the engine torn apart, figuring out what exactly needs to be redone, if there is any issues with the housings or the rotors or whatever, get the port work done, get it all sealed up and all that stuff. Keep the twin turbos that came with the car factory, but maybe switch them over to parallel or something like that. But again, that's going to require ECU and tuning and all that stuff. So I'm going to have to do it smart, and I'm going to do a little bit at a time. I really don't even know what the issues are with the engine besides some of the obvious things like the oil leak, and maybe a little bit of idle issues. But I don't even know if the kilometers on the car are correct, because I believe that cluster came from a different car. That's not the original cluster to this car. So I don't even know how many miles are on this engine. It's ran great. I haven't had any issues. It's got plenty of power. It's very, I'm really surprised every time I get in the car that it just fires right up and it just runs great. No overheating issues. As far as I can tell, there's just nothing really wrong with the engine or the drivetrain. One of the quickest ways to gauge the health of that engine is to do a compression test. So whether it's piston engine or rotary engine, particularly with the rotary engine, the compression test is really going to give you a pretty decent feeling on what's kind of going on with the engine. So you can do a compression test with a standard piston compression tester, and it's kind of you're relying on your eye to catch the readings and all that kind of stuff. But if you're just trying to gauge how much compression you've got, it's certainly one way to do it. Cheap compression tester, and you can get it going. I do have a rotary compression tester, which we'll use. Sorry, giant bug. I got it from Steve over at rotarycompressiontester.com. This will be my first time using it, but so far I've really liked the unit. The instructions are very clear, and it seems really well made. So we'll use that to do check in on the engine. But I think the first steps are I've got to get the car lifted up, and inevitably it means taking the wide body kit off just because it gets in the way of the lift. So I'm gonna get that going, and then I'll check in with you guys in a second when we get started with the compression test. I've let the engine run for a little while, so it's definitely up to temperature. To do the compression test, you need to disable your fuel and spark. So one way to do it is, or at least partially, is to pull out the EGI main relay. So it's this big yellow guy here, just pluck that out. And then you could pull the crank angle sensor connections, but they're almost impossible to get to, at least, from up here. So I think what I'll do is probably just pull the spark plug wires off the spark plugs, and that should be good enough for me. So everything else we need to do is really, you can do the compression test from up here because you can access the spark plugs up there. The front housing is a lot more difficult to get to than the rear housing, but anyway, from below it's really easy to get to. So I'm gonna go ahead and lift the car up so that we can get the spark plugs out and then start the compression test. Next step is gonna be getting I think it could be either spark plug. And from down here it would actually be more advantageous to use the leading spark plug, but I'll follow all the directions with the compression tester and do the trailing plug, which is the top plug, the blue boot that you see there. So my next step is going to be getting that spark plug out, and then I'm going to go ahead and just pull all the spark plug cables off. I don't think I've disabled the ignition system, but anyway, I'll get these spark plugs off, and then I'll go ahead and hand tighten in the sensor for the compression tester. So I got this rotary compression tester from rotary-compression-tester.com. I think it's probably one of the only other ones out there besides the original Mazda compression tester. To have a shop do a compression test I was probably looking at like $100 and $125. So I think with a discount I got this for, I think it was like 250 bucks or something. But if you follow Rotary Compression Tester on Instagram, he's always running discounts, and he's got a pretty cool Instagram page, lots of RX7 content. This is something I'm probably going to do many times. So being able to do this in my garage will be just anytime I want to. I think this is going to be well worth its weight to have in my shop. It's a relatively simple process, but it outlines everything right here on the unit. It also comes with a little paperwork to talk about things. So far this unit has been extremely easy to use. I'm really liking the rugged rubber case, and it came with everything you needed to get up and running. So like I said, go visit rotarycompressiontester.com. This is not sponsored, but I always like to stand by good products and help out a small business when I can. So anyway, the next step is going to be to go ahead and get the car set up for the first compression test, which we're going to do the rear housing first. I got everything mounted in there. So I'll check back in just a second. All right, so I've got both of the top spark plugs, which are the trailing plugs, out. I've got the compression sensor installed in the rear housing, rotor housing, and I've basically I'll just set the compression tester on a chair and let you guys see the test. All right, so we got a good test. It looks like the adjustments are 102, 93, 103. That's actually really surprising. I knew the engine ran really well, but I expected those to be in the 80s, maybe low 90s, but 100. And you can have up to a 20 PSI difference, so that middle reading is not terrible. It may mean that maybe there is a seal or something, but anyway, I'm really impressed. That's for the rear housing. So I'll get all this swapped over to the front housing. So these numbers actually are better on the front housing. Now, the engine may have cooled a little bit, not much, but those could be a couple PSI high just because the engine's cooled off a little bit. But I think they were all 100, which is which is great. 108, 107, 102. I knew the engine was good, but I'm actually really happy with these results. You know, it didn't seem like I was burning any oil or burning any coolant, so hopefully all the seals in the rotor housings and on the rotors are in great shape. I'm going to run these tests a couple more times just to, you know, make sure these results are consistent, but otherwise I'm going to get the car put back down on the ground and I'll check in with you guys in a second. So while I have the car lifted up, I'll show you some of the things that I've got to deal with. So this connection, I've seen this, but didn't really know where it went to because it looks like it goes up, but what it really does is kind of loop around, and it actually is connected to the oil pan. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that is the oil level sensor. If anybody knows exactly what this is, I'm gonna have to replace it, and I'm gonna have to figure out where it plugs into. I could look at the factory service manuals, but I mean, it can only go so many places because there's not a lot of room up there. But anyway, you know, the car drives fine. You know, the compression test that we did kind of shows that the engine is relatively healthy. Now, sometimes there is a little bit of an idle issue, but for the most part, once it's warmed up, the thing drives great. I took it to Cars and Coffee this weekend, and I had a blast driving it around. Obviously, the biggest thing I've got to deal with down here is an oil leak. I have done a visual inspection of the whole engine from below, and it looks like all the oil is basically concentrated right here at the rear of the motor. I think it's probably just the rear main seal. There is some oil up here on the side, but that all looks old and grimy, so that could have been from something a while back. But it looks like all the oil that I'm getting now is probably coming from the rear main seal. So I don't know if you can kind of see, there's lots of oil here on the transmission housing, and I've pulled this inspection plate off, and there's oil on the clutch. And I think one of the primary things I'm going to need to focus on soon is getting this oil leak controlled. I was hoping to do it when I rebuild the engine, but if it's just the rear main seal, maybe it's time to get the transmission pulled out, get the clutch fixed, and get that seal replaced. But other than that, there's you know, really not a lot of rust on this car for as old as it is. The floor pans on both sides are dented in where somebody's lifted it up from, you know, it's probably bent in an inch or two on both sides. So I'm gonna have to get those hammered back out. I haven't had any leaks from any of the clutch components that I've worked on, and the rear diff is dry as well. I don't know if you'll be able to see it down there, but you know, all that work has been great. The car drives great. I do have some issues with the tie rods there. The boots are just wrecked, and I do have new ones to put on here. I mean, everything else looks in really great shape. I mean, really, there's nothing to complain about for 1992, and there's really very minimal rust. I think the only real rust is back there on one of the pinch welds where the jack point is, but other than that, the body's really clean. You know, really even, I mean, none of the fasteners are really even that rusty. So that's good news. I won't have to track down too many parts. Just some of the maintenance type things for now, which actually, that's loose. So anyway. It's a huge relief that the compression test results are as good as they are. Basically, that front rotor, you're probably averaging a little over 100 PSI, and the back rotor, you're probably averaging in the mid 90s, you know, 95, 96 PSI. So both of those are really good numbers. That was really easy to do, something I'll probably do more often, you know, definitely throughout the different stages of the build. If you guys have any shops that you would recommend, put them down in the comments below. Basically, I'm just looking for a shop I could, you know, disassemble my motor. I can ship them the parts, and you know, they can do the port work. You know, anything I need done, they can do it and then ship it back to me, and then I'll assemble it here at my garage. Anyway, in the short term, I have tons of parts all over my house for this car, mostly interior stuff. I've got trim everywhere. I've got seats. I'm actually gonna do the rear bin conversion. I'll show you that in a second. I am missing a couple of trim pieces I need you guys to help me out with. So it's gonna be challenging to film with the seats in the car, but I do wanna do the US bin conversion, which I have picked up a decent bin, but I don't have the divider and I don't have the rear side panels. It's something I've been looking for a long time. I've been searching the marketplaces and online forums, but if you guys have any leads on a good set of black, the divider and the two side panels, let me know, because I'll definitely be interested in buying those. If anybody is looking for a really good set of the The seats and the side trim from the JDM version, I would be willing to sell and or trade as well. So I do have the bins, but I do need the other 3 pieces to complete the conversion. Hopefully the shot shows the condition of the seats. They're actually really good shape, a little dirty maybe. Side panels are a little scuffed, but not terrible. And so anyway, let me know in the comments below where I can find that if you guys know of anybody, and I'll be looking to buy or trade. Anyway, so I think my next video is probably going to be the start of tearing the interior out of the car. I want to get these parts cleared out of my way, and then in the meantime I can start planning and getting the ball rolling to get the engine work going. I've also got ABS delete kits, and I've got, I'll do the stereo, so there's lots of things I'm going to do in the short term with the stuff that I've got on hand. Sorry for the rambling video. I hope you guys enjoyed the compression test. I'm really stoked about the results because you never know how that's going to go. I mean, it could have been terrible or it could have been really low compression, but I didn't think it was because it's run pretty good. And as always, if you guys have any comments or any suggestions or anything, leave them down below. This is definitely the video I'm going to look for you guys to give me some advice on what we should do with the car. You guys let me know what you want, and I'll try to make it happen. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you like the content, and I'll see you guys later.